Hello and welcome to the Heads and Volleys podcast with me, Lee Dunn. Today's episode is focused on the grassroots youth player. We start with the very young players, and you'll see many programs out there now that are offering soccer to 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and all the way up. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Tom Schutt. He is the pre-academy director for Napa United. He works primarily with the 4 through 10-year-olds within the club. And the idea is that he prepares them, he prepares their coaches to move into the academy as they move up in age. Tom has worked with these players for a long time, and I think this is such a special age group to be working with. And often you'll find that clubs will put just a willing person to work with such a young age. But Tom is a real specialist at working with this age group. And that's why I think it's really important that what he has to say here is broadcast, because he mentions a lot of quality things that you can bring into your practice with these youngest players. And it's still applicable across most ages too. But working with the youngest players is a real skill. And I'm really excited to present what we're talking about. But before I do, I want to share with you the tactical pad software that I use. I use it to create the animated GIFs that I then show the players. And with a lot of these players that are super young and super engaged in technology, it's a fantastic way just to spend 5 minutes of putting it together on the app and then showing the players and say, look, this is what you can do. Head over to LeeDunneSoccer.com and you'll be able to pull up the tactical pad information right there. Follow the link, you'll get 10% off any subscription that you purchase. But it's a fantastic tool to show to your players. You can check me out at LeeDunneSoccer on Twitter, and you'll see a lot of the videos I put together will include the active GIF, and then I will combine it with some footage of the players actually playing so they can see themselves versus the GIF. And it works with some of the older players, but for younger players too, they're thrilled to see themselves in action, and that's something that they never see. So a huge thanks to Tactical Pad for their support, and into the show we go with Tom Schutt, the pre-academy director for Napa United. All right, Tom, welcome, mate.
Hello.
Glad to be talking with you.
Yep, it's good to be here.
So you are the director for the pre-academy for Napa United?
Yes. So
how long have you been doing that for?
2 years.
2 years.
Going into my 3rd year.
And that's 4 through 10-year-olds?
4 through 10-year-olds. So any kid in our club, academy or recreational, any kid who's 4 to 10 gets a professional coach.
So when you're working with well, let me ask you first, actually, these kids are playing, and do they have volunteers that are coaches as well? Or is it a professional coach within the club?
So they would have a volunteer, if they're in rec, they would have a volunteer coach who I will oversee and look after, and also go to their sessions and make sure, they're doing the sessions. And also I would probably jump in a session every now and then. I try to get around to every rec team, but with my own practices and everything else, it's difficult. But yes, they will have a volunteer rec coach.
So let's start with the recreational side then. Do you have goals for them working with their teams for the season? Is there like a specified outcome or an objective for each player or for each team?
Yes, it's not as laid out as most clubs. It's pretty basic. We just want every kid between 4 to 10 to be comfortable on the ball, to take a touch or not take a touch, or be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's the outcome. And that takes lots of ball mastery sessions, 1v1s, 2v2s, and just basically having them with the ball at the feet 24 for the duration of the session.
And they practice 60 minutes, 90 minutes?
60 minutes or an hour and 15, so 75 minutes.
Do you have what a typical structure is for that session, what that would look like?
First 15 minutes is they're just an arrival game. They just turn up and play games, small-sided 3v3s or 4v4s. So first kid arrives, second kid arrives 1v1, 2v1, 2v2, all the way up to 4v4. We probably have 3 or 4 fields of that going. After the first 20 minutes, coach brings them in, gives them expectations, maybe has a bit of a fun dynamic warm-up with the ball, without the ball. That might take 10, 15 minutes. Then we're into our little 1v1s. Then from that we'll go back to our 3v3s, but we might have little conditions on there where you might have to, if you score a goal and another player is running or kicking over a cone next to the goal, then you might get an extra point based on what they've been working on. But it's not too tactical, obviously. It's mainly just a very quick session with the ball, as many touches as possible, small-sided games.
And how often do they practice?
They will practice twice a week.
Okay.
This year, our rec teams are going to have twice a week with an option of a third session, which will be with me. And it'll just be a drop-in session where we might just work on the Croy term for 2 sessions, 2 Fridays. So this year it will be 2, and then an option of having a third. And that's no rising costs. We just feel we need to give them an extra day.
So with those volunteers, do you give them session plans? Do you give them like a structure, or is it kind of away you go?
Yep, we give them a structure. We give them an idea of what we expect from the session. There is session ideas. We have lots of communication between our coaches. We have a bit of a forum. We use WhatsApp a lot, coach groups, and we share ideas. We say things that don't work, but we give there's probably about 8 to 10 core 1v1s, which 360 pressure and whatnot. But we tend to make them understand that, like I said before, how the session works. It's quick, lots of touches on the ball, but at the same time we don't want to take away too much from the coach. Make them so it's their journey. There's no right or wrong with coaching as long as the kids are enjoying it and they're improving. So yeah, 8 to 10 core practice sessions, 1v1s that we want to put in there, but most of it, as long as the kids are all moving, they're active, then we're happy with that. So
given that most of these volunteers are probably parents and coaching their own kid times 10, because that's how many they have in their roster.
Yeah.
What do you, when you first meet them or when they first take over or pre-season, what advice do you give them?
To a parent coach?
Yeah.
You are just a vessel. Like, you literally pick the kid up, drop the kid off, you practice, you can't say anything to them. It's a really challenging thing, a parent coach, because it's their journey, it's their sport. Yes, you're the coach, but it's them doing it. So I always say to the coaches, you don't really coach your kid. They're just there. If your kid asks you questions on how to improve, then of course you're there for them. But in regards to coaching them, my best advice is just to let the kid be on its own journey. And in an ideal world, at a certain level, you wouldn't have a parent coach. At the club level, we tend to pull those coaches away from their kids. Rec level, you can't get away from it. But yeah, you're just a vessel. You open the door, well done, good job, let's get some ice cream. That's it. There's no constant coaching or coaching your kid in particular as you're on a session. Let them be. It's their journey.
I know from my own experience where you'll be talking to a parent who is a coach and they're so conscious about their own kid, they're either really focused on coaching them without realizing, or they're super focused on not coaching them at all.
Yeah.
And then the kid thinks that their dad hates them because he never talks to them at practice.
Yeah, or their kid is really good and their kid does everything. It's like their kid's the captain, their kid takes the corners, she's everything. We kick the ball this way. It's one or two ways. I find it's tricky.
So then, do you think for these players that are joining together, you made a good point there about how, especially recreational, some are really good, some are developing, and for a lot of organizations you get a mixture of kids that are put together and now suddenly they're a team. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend for coaches if you've ever been in that situation, and I'm sure you have, with mixed ability players? How do you deal with that with that group?
It's very tricky. It's remain absolutely positive throughout. If a kid is not getting success in the session that you want, you have to nurture that child, maybe pull them aside, give them some advice, be uber positive throughout the session with those kids, and then those top players who are doing well, who find it easy, you might want to put restrictions on them where it's minimum touches. You have to connect three passes, or you put restrictions on those top players. So therefore you are pushing the top players, you're giving them a challenge. At the same time, you are nurturing those ones who are finding it hard. But the biggest advice, like any kid, if you are positive them, it releases endorphins and they're happy. The moment you you are negative because they can't do it, or you're trying to be that coach who, yeah, good job, come on, and you're pushing them a little too hard. Just remain calm. It's their journey. Some kids take it quicker than others, but just be positive with them, and eventually they will get it. The moment you start being flustered, or they see you being flustered with them, kids aren't stupid. They'll pick up on that. So just remain positive, and hopefully that kid will turn around. But I say to most of my club coaches on the bronze side that you're only really as good as your weakest player on the club side. Rec level, it's whatever, it's rec. But on the club side, you have to work with those lower kids more, because you're only as good as your weakest player at the club level.
So I've experienced the same thing a few times and actually had several discussions, and my experience is when you have a divide in level in the team, there's a kind of a mixed idea of whether you should put the developing players with the developing players, and then the better players with the better players, or do you mix it up so that you can almost create role models or create different experiences for those players that are really developing to play with a really good player? Because I'm sure if you or I play with Messi, we might be a little better than we would be if we played together, for example. I think your skill level might bring me down a little bit, and so
100%. Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think as coaches, we should always be watching our players and assessing and seeing what's going on. That's coaching in a nutshell. I find with young kids, kids are inconsistent. Maybe it's in their behaviour. One day they're good, one day they're bad, and that can fluctuate throughout the day. If you have a weaker kid who is on fire that day, or in the game they're on fire, keep them in there, because that's that peak performance time where they can really take that next step in development. So if a kid is on fire, that kid who can't quite control the ball well, but for that one day in practice or in the game they're on fire, keep them in there. If in practice they're doing well, maybe bump them up to the faster or the better level, because kids can be inconsistent. Sometimes your best players can have a bad day, so maybe you want to bump them down or whatever. I think you must always be constantly watching your plays and assessing, because kids, like I said, are inconsistent in their performance and behaviour.
I think the key point is watching, right? Is assessing. And I think a lot of coaches worry so much about the actual practice that they're running, and they find things online and they may see
do that today.
You pass around here and you score here and you get 10 points if you do this, and there's so much confusion for these kids or for the coach even, that they forget to actually watch that their players are doing it. And often there's so many rules.
Correct.
And that's why I think when you follow the kind of whole or play model, where you play for a lot of the practice, the game is very simple, and you can then watch these players learn and playing.
Yeah, assessing, watching.
Yes.
It's massive.
So I think you are probably one of the best coaches I've ever seen working with really young players. What's in your mind when you're about to walk into a group of players, whether it's in a school or on a field with a group of teams? Like, do you have constants that you're always using? What are your key skills, would you say, for working with those players?
I think at that level, you've got to put yourself in the kids' shoes. I always remember when I was really, really young, I went to see one of my dad's friends, who was a golf professional. I was really nervous. He was one of my dad's friends, and he knew me, and he made me feel so comfortable on the welcome. Like, "Hey Tom, how are you?" Give me a massive high five. Got down on my eye level, and from that moment, I felt all the nerves went away, and I was like, "Oh, I feel relaxed." And that moment stayed with me forever. So whenever I coach young kids, I want that first interaction to be uber positive, make them smile. If they give you a high five, maybe just go, that hurt me, and the kid smiles. Get them to smile and sort of relax a little bit in those first 5-10 minutes. The initial point of contact with a kid is vital. Get down on their level, be it so they can see you in the eyes, on their knees, roll around in the grass, make a fool of yourself. They're the things I always try to do when I'm coaching young kids. I think there's a couple of boxes I look for. Make sure it's fun. Make sure the kids are enjoying themselves, and make them feel like they are improving. The two massive things that I try to do in those sessions. I don't tend to talk too much. It's more shouting and copying and rolling around initially. For example, the kids might have to throw the ball in the air and clap with their hands 4 times. I might do that twice, and then on the 3rd time miss it and fall over and sort of break those boundaries a little bit with the kids. And then maybe we might introduce some more difficult ones as we go along. But it's the constant high energy throughout the session. Most of the younger ones, it's normally 45 minutes to an hour. That's normally how long you got them for anyway, especially if you're looking at the 4s and sometimes 3-year-olds. It's definitely 45, maybe even 40 minutes. But it's your high energy throughout. Put yourself in their shoes and relate it to yourself. If you go to work and you see your boss and she's gonna say, we're working on our Excel spreadsheets today, could you turn 2 pages? I mean, they've lost the audience, but hey guys, how are we doing today? It's just, you've got to change that mindset for the kids. Lots and lots of energy.
So then what about as you go to kind of 7, 8, 9-year-olds? Because it tends to be a little bit more serious.
Correct.
They're a little more too cool for school, if you like. This coach is a bit silly. I don't know what he's doing out here now. So then what do you take to those sessions?
Energy's still got to be high, still got to be positive. Those kids, because they are sort of cooler, a little more hipper, you sort of got to break them down, make them feel laugh. Sometimes if call the kids in and the kids last, they might have to sing Jingle Bells. All the kids might do a little beat like poof, poof, and the kids got to sing Jingle Bells or do a dance. If 2 kids are messing about, make it fun. You might have to do a little serenade dance together in the middle. Break those. I mean, high energy. Obviously, you can't be as silly or as daft as you were with the younger ones, but you still got to remain that little bit of a character and that counterweight between those cool kids to make sure that everyone's sort of together as one.
I think from my own experience that there has to be a crossover, right? That you go from that Mr. Silly to still silly but serious.
Make them feel like they're your best mate, but at the same time you can just go, hey, give them a look, and then that's it. They whip them back into shape. Because those kids will take liabilities, won't they?
They will, absolutely.
If you feel they've got too much rope. But the moment you feel as a coach that they step to the line, make a point of that. That it's, hey, I'm in charge here.
Now, do you think, and I think I probably know the answer because I've experienced the same too, that a lot of the time you might find kids and the youngest, 7, 8, 9, they'll mess around, they'll pick on each other, or they'll have issues when they're not completely engaged or they're not listened to in a practice. So you put 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds in a line of 10 kids, the back 2 are already fighting by the time they get to the front for their turn to take their go of whatever that session is. And so I think it's really important that coaches know how to reduce a lot of those issues, because you can be fun and you can have high energy, but if your kids are standing in a line, they're not really going to have a good time and they're not going to come back. And I think that kind of goes back to the measurables. A lot of people want to find what the measurables are. Can a kid do this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill? But that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for these kids to be able to play the game and enjoy it. You talk about ball mastery, but there's no specifics. And then, do they love it? Do they want to keep playing? Do they take the soccer ball with them on vacation? Do they wear their soccer team jersey to the store? Do they wear it on a Monday, even though they wore it Saturday and Sunday in games? And this is what I think is really important for these kids. And as a coach, you can really encourage that with an engaging and fulfilling practice.
It's like anything. If you have a passion for something, like your hobby might be gardening, you might like gardening. You are going to read about gardening, you're going to watch TV shows about it. It's like kids with soccer. If you give a kid a passion for soccer, you've already halfway there, because they're going to go home, they're going to watch it. If you talk about soccer, or you send them video clips and you feed that fire with information through emails to the parents, or telling us, hey, you remind me of this soccer player, and send them a YouTube link. If you give a kid a passion for it through your sessions, make them feel that they're enjoying it and make them feel that they're improving. Give a kid a passion for it, and that's it. You've nailed it. Because then, if little Johnny says to his mum, "Hey, I want to go to the park and kick a soccer ball," I'm pretty sure that mum's going to drop everything and take him out there, and there you go. They're already improved. They're already doing it outside of practice and games.
I think that's so true, because think back to when we were growing up playing. You play in the street all the time. I constantly talk about the games we made up.
Yeah.
This podcast is Heads and Volleys because of the game we made up, where you can only score with a header or volley.
So many hours playing those games.
You can, and you're right, you ignite that passion. They want to play. They want to be better. They want to, and they love playing because of your influence. I think you've really done your job. So then, a question on. Like homework. So you kind of mentioned, hey, you remind me of Messi. I really want you to watch a couple of videos of him. We just watched a video before coming on here of his hat-trick goal, where the opposing fans are cheering him. Not only are you seeing this amazing soccer player and the goal he's just scored and his role, but then you're also seeing the sportsmanship example too. So do you give your players anything particular? Do you give like players in the recreational program of Napa United, do you say, hey, everybody should be watching this, or do you you share stuff like that?
So we the great tool on the iPhone is screen recording. So, on Twitter you can pull a lot of videos of little GIFs of players doing skills. With my club teams, my 09 boys, a mixture of 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, if we're working on playing out from the back, for example, and different ways to play out, and we see something good at the weekend, like Leeds United this year have been great with Bielsa, so it's a great clip just to reinforce that, to see professionals doing it. And sometimes if we have our game recorded on, it's not every game, but some games, if our games are recorded, and we play out from the back in those moments where I sort of like to take a snippet of that and then clip it with the clip I sent out to say, hey, look, this is similar to what the professionals are doing. Like, it could be like a 30-second clip, but you clipped it together and it sort of connects the two. Oh, look at that. That's the professional team doing it, and we are doing it. I don't think there's any kid in the world who wouldn't get a buzz off that, or, again, just to see themselves, oh my goodness, we're doing the same as them.
I publish a lot of video too. I have a GoPro, I just put it on a stand, and then I'll pick a skill like the Cruyff, or I'll do something silly like around the world, and I'll just do these flicks, and then I record it, and I put some cool music on it, and then put it on YouTube.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Send it to my players and say, can you do this?
Yeah.
Send me a video back of you doing this, or how many times can you do it, or anything like that just encourages them to go and play elsewhere.
Yeah, just giving them the incentives to get outside and do something. Doing around the world in your lounge, while the TV's on. You've got no excuse. You got the space to go and do something.
So then, I think one of my last questions, and something that I think we could probably talk about for a long time, is the focus for kids that are playing at these young ages, this 4 through 10-year-old window, and the team philosophy, and everybody involved in the game at this age. What's the focus? Are we in it to win? Are we in it to lose? Are we in it for development? And if we're in it for development, what does development look like? Like, what are we saying? Because I think the hot thing is player development.
Correct.
That's the great thing.
That's the topic, but that's the headline, but what does it mean? For me, every session I do, every kid I work with, I want to make that kid the best soccer player in the world. I want to make that kid the best version of themselves on and off the soccer field. At these younger ages, I think it's results. It's not a results-driven business at this age, but you also at the same time you have to harbour a winning mentality. We want kids to go into a game, whether you're 6, 7, 8 or whatever, to go and want to win the game, to have that passion, that not to give up, to play strong, to play hard, to do your job. Even if you're losing and you now got a chance to win, to do your job right to the end, to harbour a winning mentality. At the end of the game, it's whatever. Win, lose, draw, it doesn't matter. It's done. Great job today, blah, blah, blah. This and this, great. All positive. Obviously, as they get older, that winning mentality would turn into, okay, we must win this game, or we've got to win this game. But you have to harbour a kid's winning mentality. When I initially started coaching, I felt, I got the fun down, I nailed that bit, but I was looking at my players going, they just seem to crumble in games. So, making sure, hey boys, like, you are here You're here to win this game. Your parents haven't travelled here 2 hours for you to not want to win the game. If you don't win it, or if you lose, or you draw, or whatever, that's fine. That's all positive, because at the end of the day, we've come out here, we've played soccer, you've been with your mates, you've played a sport that you love, and we haven't got the win. No one asked Steph Curry how many basketball games he won at 8. No one asked Leo Messi, hey Messi, how many games did you win when you were 9? It's irrelevant. All those games that he's played, it's obviously serving him well. So at this age, play development to me is making the best possible player you can, looking at a player individually. If this player is naturally a defender, make them the best possible defender on and off the field. Committed, shows resilience, compassion, good on the ball, likes to tackle. And then once you have that winning mentality, I then pass it on to the academy director and takes it to the next level where he harbours that, a bit more of a weapon on the field.
Brilliant. So anything to add? Anything from you? Anything that you think is really important?
No, I think a lot of coaches at this level don't understand the impact that they have on kids. I think the big thing I always believe in is you are more than just a coach. So when you are working with these kids, enjoy it. You are in a very lucky position that you have been trusted to coach these young children, these young adults who you are shaping to be a good person on and off the field. But that's the key. It's you are more than just a coach. If I asked you who won the Super Bowl in 1984, you wouldn't know. If I asked you who won it in 2006,
right? But
I asked you who was your favourite teacher when you were at school, you could probably name it very quickly because they made an impact on you, because they give you a passion for something. Mine was a PE teacher. I love PE, so Mr. Pritchard, Jason Pritchard is my teacher who I remember. So enjoy it. It's hard work. You do put in a lot of hours. You do stress a lot about it, but you are in such a privileged position, and if you enforce the golden rule and treat others how you want to be treated and instill that in people, and you've nailed it. So yeah,
I think to just wrap up that they're not adults, they're not mini adults. You can't expect them to do what they did in practice 3 days ago without constant reinforcement, without it becoming a habit, without their passion and love for the game really growing. Otherwise, they're just turning up to take part in another activity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that if you take away everything from this discussion of your focus on them as individuals, engaging them and encouraging them to love the game beyond what they do with you for 45 minutes to 90 minutes once or twice or 3 times a week, that you can really help them grasp the game, love the game, and in turn I think you'll start seeing performances improve, or victories will start coming, which will reinforce the hard work that you do with your players.
Sure.
Tom, thank you, mate.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
man. After we finished recording, Tom and I continued our conversation briefly and made mention of the fact that a lot of children are learning bad habits. And we decided it would be key to offer up a little bit of advice to every youth parent, which is that when you take your child out to play, or if you have a ball in your house or in your backyard, encourage them to dribble and to manipulate the ball. Passing back and forth is what you'll see a lot of parents doing, but actually they're learning to kick the ball, when everything that Tom mentions there and everything he puts into his own sessions, and I'm sure there are many coaches who do the same thing, where they want to encourage their children to be able to dribble and to be comfortable on the ball. Tom's entire season plan is just to make sure that every player is comfortable on the ball. So encourage them to have the ball at their feet and to dribble and to move the ball. And to support that, there is a program called Soccer Starts at Home, created and driven by a gentleman named Tom Bayer. I've had the privilege of talking with Tom a couple of times, and he's very active on Twitter and a lot of social media in pushing out the idea of your players having the ball at their feet, not kicking the ball back and forth, but being brave and being confident with the ball at their feet. So check out Tom Bayer. You can find him online on Twitter, is generally where he publishes a lot of his material. But then also check out my own YouTube too, LeeDunneSoccer. That's where I have the videos that I make for the players, where I perform a skill with my GoPro and then edit it with some cool music and then send it out to my players. So again, you can find that on YouTube, and it's a great little tool just to share and encourage your players to begin to love the game and develop a passion for it, because when they're successful, when they're having fun with the ball, is generally when we're going to find them loving the game more and more. So thank you again for listening to today. Another thank you to Tactical Pad for providing the access to the software for you to create those gifts for your players and for yourself. So thank you, Tactical Pad, and thank you to Tom especially for him attending and being part of today's show. Thanks, and more material from Heads and Volleys coming soon.